Yeah. I recall when I was CNN's White House correspondent being asked on one occasion how long I expected to keep doing the job. And my response was something along the lines of, I'm not ready to give it over to some smart aleck 25-year-old. And then I came to USC, and our job is to train those smart aleck 25-year-olds or 20-somethings. Josh Dawsey is the epitome of a smart, sometimes smart aleck reporter. He is, as Andrea says, a White House correspondent for Politico. I remember when Josh took a financial reporting course with Rob Wells here, and he wound up at the Wall Street Journal. That's a dream for many journalists. But it was a first stop and a stepping stone for Josh. As important as business and financial reporting are, and they are, Ken Baldwin, they're not necessarily the red meat of politics. And Josh is a carnivore, in the best sense. After chewing on Mayor de Blasio and Governor Christie, he's gotten the ultimate meat lover's pizza, the Trump White House. I may be mixing meats, if not metaphors. It's an interesting journey for a young man, as Andrea pointed out, from Aner, South Carolina. Consider a couple of Josh's recent tweets. Covering Trump often feels like days of perpetual motion that bring little movement. Or, Trump has a knack of putting people in situations where they are asked questions that are difficult, ridiculous, or uncomfortable to answer. Josh's own Twitter description, he is at @JDawsey1, calls himself a Politico White House reporter, proud at WSJ and Room 9 alum, Southerner and New Yorker at heart, cigar and bourbon kind of guy, and concludes, what can we do to get you on the news? As long as I've known Josh, he's been dedicated to getting the news. Back in the Coliseum, Josh would materialize in the dean's office periodically, usually unannounced. Sometimes it was to voice a concern. In 2011, he complained about fake journalism, not the kind we hear about today. Sometimes he'd come to talk, though he may have had ulterior motives. In 2011, he tweeted, spent the afternoon talking about the world, media, politics, 9/11 with @CJBSC, that's me. Great for me, I won't characterize for him. In 2011, he sent me an email that said, wow, you're not showing me much love today. The Daily Gamecock loves its J-School dean. It would only appreciate reciprocity. I do think I was still I think I was misquoted, Mr. Dawsey. Josh still pops up in my office from time to time on my screen from the Politico office or from the MSNBC set. I'm amused, delighted, and quite gratified to see him there. I'm even more pleased to have this opportunity to introduce and recognize Josh for his rapid rise to a ringside seat at the White House. When he was at the Wall Street Journal, editor-in-chief Gerard Baker wrote of the paper's coverage of the Boston Marathon bombing, Josh Dawsey was everywhere all the time, filing, digging up records, and landing interviews. Darla Moore once sent Josh a message. It was back in 2012 after Governor Haley dismissed her from the Board of Trustees. She told Josh, you're the only person in the whole world I'm talking to today about this. I'm in Nairobi, Kenya, but remembered you from our USC days together. Josh does make an impression on people. He is the only former Daily Gamecock editor still spoken of in fear, if not loathing, in Osborne. President Pastides asked me, Josh, to congratulate you this evening, and he added this. Josh could interrogate, torment, and make you smile all at the same time. I'm glad he's not with the Daily Gamecock anymore. I mean, said President Pastides, I'm so glad he is so successful and has returned from homecoming. Welcome back, Josh.
I came to see Dean Beerbauer today, and he said there would be a very entertaining introduction. I promised I would tuck my shirt in, and I don't know that either one of those happened tonight. I had to do it, sorry. It's really great to be back at the J School here. The rooftop garden, state-of-the-art technology, prime location on the Horseshoe, and sunlight. I mean, I was here for 4 years, and the brightest thing I saw was Doug Fisher's personality. Where's Doug Fisher? I mean, it was dark. You could get there in the morning. It was dark. You left at night. It was dark. It made no difference. And then once a year, there were elephants from a circus who would come and maybe poop outside your car. Anyway, Professor Fisher knows I love him, kind of. I was reminiscing with some friends a few weeks ago about my favorite memory of Professor Fisher, who ruined people's lives but also made them a lot better reporters. January 2011, 2 inches of snow. Columbia shuts down. I think you guys are all aware of what happens when there's 2 inches of snow here. Classes were canceled. It was the first day of class. Everyone missed class. Everyone was elated. My college roommates, a couple of them are here tonight. Everyone's in the yard throwing snowballs, throwing footballs. Everyone's happy. I was inside. Professor Fisher had a Skype class for everyone and said, please log on. It's the first day of class. We want you to, get started. It was optional. If you believe that, there's oceanfront property in Arizona for you. It was not optional. It's a great honor to be back here, though. I owe a lot of my career to Dean Beerbauer. I graduated in 2012. I moved to New York, worked for the Wall Street Journal for 4 or 5 years. Had the opportunity to do some great stories, Boston bombing, covering Superstorm Sandy. I came down for Charleston for the church shooting, covered Mayor de Blasio, Governor Christie. It was a really fun 5 years. Get to do a lot of breaking news. Then last November, I think everyone was a bit surprised. President Trump won. There was an opportunity to move to Washington. I think if you're a reporter this day and age, why do you want to be in New York when President Trump's in Washington? And it was the best story of a lifetime. So I came down in December 2016, and I've gotten to have some neat experiences, sitting with him in the Oval Office, where he said to me, "You're from South Carolina?" And I said, "Sure." He goes, "Your people like me." And I said, "Yeah, Mr. President, they really do like you." And he goes, "You like Crooked Hillary, don't you?" And I said, "Nah, I don't really vote for either one of you." He goes, "They like me a lot better than you do." I said, "That's probably true." I flew with him this fall to Mar-a-Lago, where he sent 59 missiles into Syria while we were underneath the palm trees and the mangroves, and people were clinking glasses and eating filet mignon, and all of a sudden maybe we were going to war. We were just standing outside of a resort in palatial Florida. It was a fun experience. Having a tipsy Sean Spicer yell at me many occasions. We wrote a story saying that President Trump did not like that he was played by a woman on SNL. I would tell you how it ends, but maybe there are some children here tonight, so I probably shouldn't. Sean is pretty great. That said, most of my success here comes back to Professor Fisher and Dean Beerbauer and Rob Wells, who was mentioned earlier, and a lot of alumni who helped me get internships and jobs and helped my career, and I'm deeply appreciative. I learned a lot on how to fight with public officials at South Carolina with Dr. Pastides. I spent a year trying to get every email he ever sent or received. We logged 6 boxes out of his office. The outcome was that he was actually pretty clean and he was doing a good job, and I kind of feel bad that I did that now, but it happened and it's over, and I'm sorry. Dr. Pastides, if you're here somewhere, your emails are pretty okay. And on a more serious note, there's a lot of gloom about journalism these days, layoffs and metro newspapers failing and people leaving and, fake news even from the president and, a sometimes slippery slope into kind of a post-factual society where no one really knows what to believe. And there are a lot of things that concern us. But At the same time, it's a really interesting time in our history, and it's really fun to be in Washington right now. The industry's changing, politics are changing, how people consume news is changing. Some of the attacks and the kind of rhetoric we see, I think, is unfortunate, but and there are days when it's pretty demoralizing. I mean, there are a lot of people who come after reporters and really think journalism is not a force for good, which I really believe it is. But I would say more often than not, I think as Dean Bierbauer said when he was covering the White House, this is a terrific job. It's the most fun you could ever want. I mean, you get to go up to anyone in the world and ask them questions, and you get to be as nosy as you want to be and ask them things that you should not ask another human being, but you do, and you do it under the guise of journalism. And there are a lot of really talented people at Politico and the New York Times and the Washington Post and a lot of outlets who, really do good work and want to make a difference. And that's something to be remembered in this time. Investigative journalism, I think, in the Trump era is undergoing something of a renaissance. Newspapers are seeing increasing traffic and record numbers, online sites. Where I work at Politico, during the election, we had record traffic where, unlike we'd ever seen before. I mean, stories were getting 5 million views sometimes, and that's only getting better in the Trump presidency. And in some ways, his goal has been to delegitimize media, but I think he's actually made more and more people read, and more people care, and more people obsess about politics, and I think that's a good thing. I'll leave you with one little fun story. I occasionally do TV, and I was riding to a studio one morning, and I was complaining about Trump's tweets, and I was saying, he's ruining my life. Every morning I wake up, he said 10 things. When I get home, he said 10 things. There's no respite for the weary. And I asked my driver, and I said, what do you think of Trump? And he said, I love him. I love his tweets. And I said, really? That makes one of us. Like, why do you love his tweets? And he said, when he tweets something crazy, my phone goes off the hook. The studios want everyone in here. I've never made so much money. So, thanks for having me back. I love the University of South Carolina. I owe almost everything I have here, and go Gamecocks.